I've got here some fragrances I'm looking forward to wearing this spring. So far the weather's been spotty. We've had a few nice days and then a few dips back into cold, a whole lot of rainy days. So mostly I've been sticking to kind of getting the last few wears of my heavier winter fragrances in. But today it's looking sunny out, it's looking nice, and I felt like it's time to talk about some spring fragrances. First off, my scent of the day and a new purchase, Serge Lutens à la Nuit. This is all about jasmine, really just a pure jasmine soliflor. I decanted a bit of this into the travel spray today, and I do like this one atomized. You get more of the freshness in the opening. There's not a whole lot to say about it other than it's a very straightforward, pure, and beautiful jasmine. I think it just perfectly walks the line between being a little bit bubblegummy, a little bit heady, but there's still a green freshness. It doesn't go too fresh where it becomes insipid or shampooey florals. This is very naturalistic, really the perfect all-around Goldilocks jasmine. Super happy with this. And the more Lutens I try, I've mentioned this before, the more I think they really are, in general, fairly straightforward fragrances where you get basically what is promised on the note listing, but what they really excel at is balancing everything just right. A quick aside, but Borneo, which I'll talk about more in another video, has become my favorite patchouli. And again, it's exactly what it says in the notes list, but it's just so perfectly balanced. It's like the just right patchouli on either side of kind of camphorous and green, and then the dark chocolatey, it sits right in the middle. So I feel this way about à la Nuit. It sits right in the middle of perfect floral, even though florals are often associated, especially jasmine, with feminine fragrances. I find this very unisex because it's so natural smelling. It really just smells like a flower in nature, and who's to say what gender should wear that? So that's à la Nuit. Presence and projection isn't huge, but you get a nice, decent, musky floral dry down in the base. Big blast at the opening, but not an overly heavy fragrance. It's good for, I think, transitional seasons. Next up, maybe while we're talking about Lutens and florals, another newish purchase from the Gratte-Ciel is De Profundis. This is described as a graveyard. Oftentimes Serge has this really interesting prose and concept to go behind the fragrances. But it's described as smelling like hyacinth florals, but also dirt, cold earth. To me, it's really just a very pretty fragrance, or a chrysanthemum. I've had chrysanthemum tea, and I'm not sure I've smelled a flower in the flesh, but it doesn't necessarily remind me of the taste of the tea. But a fresh floral, I'd say the closest thing it is to maybe violet, but less spiky and less powdery than violet. It does have a little bit of a cool, earthy aspect, but nothing major. There's nothing like a geosmin or like a dirty smell, like as in actual dirt to it at all. But just like a cool flowers, like a cool florist fridge. Carnal flower has often been described that way. It's not quite as mentholated as that, and of course it's not followed up by the big white florals, but it's more what I would think of as like a very, very pale purple floral smell, like the palest purple floral, with a decent amount of sort of fresh greenness and fresh wet earth. I'll spray a tiny bit, even though I'm already wearing à la Nuit. I think these two florals could go together. Only worn this once so far, and the day I got it was fairly cold outside. Very stemmy. Like you're smelling, some people describe a bad indolic smell as dirty vase water. To me, it's like clean vase water. It's a water in which green stems have been soaking, but they're fresh stems. There's nothing old or mildewy about it at all. So yeah, really beautiful. Again, feels fairly simple and straightforward, but kind of just right in the way it sits and the way it balances aspects. And I imagine some of these are the hardest things to do because obviously you can't just put one thing in the fragrance, but it takes a lot of very fine little parts just perfectly calibrated to get that super realistic, singular focused effect in the end. Anyway, really happy to have bought De Profundis. It's one that wasn't on my radar until I saw it pop up on discounters and I Googled it. And if there's one thing right up my alley, it's kind of green, earthy florals. So it was an instant buy. moving on to a older fashion floral, Chanel number 22. This is one I've always gone back and forth on. It does have a fairly vintage character with the powdery aldehydes, the floral vanilla dry down, but there's just something so nice about that classic French soap smell. I've smelled many others like it recently, but none surpass it. I think Santa Maria Novella's Melograno does a similar thing. Dior's New Look does kind of an update to it where it sleeks it, it streamlines it, it makes it more metallic and more sharp. The softness of the flowers and vanilla provide a nice counterbalance to the bubbly aldehydes, but I think spring is where it really shines. So I'm gonna give that some more wear this season. Now my first Guerlain Art et Matière is Cuir Beluga. If you remember when I was talking about their samples, I was really taken by this one, but a little bit conflicted because it's very, very light. But something about that lightness I just find really enthralling, really intoxicating. It's the kind of thing you just want to keep wearing, and in fact I've worn it probably more than anything else since I bought it. I think it's that lightness that makes you not get sick of it and want to go for that ride again. Whereas something like Lilian, which I absolutely love, once I wear it I feel worn out, like I don't want to wear it again for several more weeks. This just leaves you wanting more and more and more and more. A lot of people talk about how there's no real leather in this. I do think that the accord of kind of iris, powdery florals, vanilla, they imply the softest, finest suede. There's certainly no bitterness, no birch tar, nothing smoky, but I do think of like a very, very fine leather car interior. But again, it's implied as kind of an amalgamation of the notes rather than a note itself. But yeah, it's just soft focus, beautiful aura of scent. It's one of those strange ones where you can just keep spraying it and it doesn't seem to change the volume, so you might as well just spray a few. The volume always stays at a very low hum, but it lasts. It really lasts all day into the next day, ending in this kind of amorphous, powdery aura of like vanilla, flower, iris. It's really beautiful. I think what I love about it so much is really the texture. It's one of the most beautiful textured fragrances that I've experienced. On to another very light one. I've talked about this before, but Osmanthus, just always really satisfying. Again, very sheer, but also still lasts pretty well. You get, again, the suggestion of tea through Osmanthus, which there is Osmanthus tea, but really you get this apricot-y floral side, a little bit shampoo-y, but I think it veers just off course from going too far in that direction, but a little bit sweet. It's just a really happy fragrance, but also really mellow. It's not like a bright, uplifting floral fragrance, but kind of a mellow, soothing, calm fragrance, and I really enjoy wearing it. On the other side of big, bright florals, maybe this belongs next to 22, is Frederic Malle Superstitious. Now, I have a 10 ml of this, and I had kind of given up on getting a bottle, and then one just popped up suddenly on Selfridges, and I ordered it right away thinking it's probably old stock that they just found one and they threw it up on the website to get rid of it. I had heard also people said it was coming back, but I still haven't seen that happen, and that's probably over 6 months ago. So I feel super lucky to have this because I really, really like it. To me, this is just like a big aldehydic jasmine from outer space. If you're trying to modernize number 22 as the Dior New Look does, I think this does a much better job of it. You get jasmine, but to me it's almost rubbery, bouncy, like it's made of, I don't know, like I imagine this really super inflated, glossy finish, like purple ball. I don't know why, but it's that texture. It's so smooth and sleek and shiny in texture, and it has this really long lasting soapy dry down, but it's not the kind of vintage French soap of Chanel 22. It smells super, super modern. It smells futuristic to me. It smells like it's from outer space. huge longevity, but I think because it's such kind of a clean smell, it's not like an offensive longevity or sillage or projection. I really, really love this. I think it was kind of also winter when I bought this. I had a chance to wear it in some warm weather and I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to having it through all of the upcoming spring season. Another one from Frederick Malle, Sale Gosse. Another one from kind of a subline. Some sales associates also told me this was limited edition, but I've still seen it on their website. Maybe it just didn't sell all that much. It does have a different bottle. It was a different theme. It's geared towards children, but I'm not sure it's really marketed as a fragrance for children, but more the theme of it is childishness. I think the name translates to like a little brat, and it's described as having a bubblegum note. But really it's a beautiful kind of neroli orange blossom musky fragrance. The bubblegum isn't too much, it's definitely there, but it's not too sweet. You get that kind of sense of pink bubblegum that also has a little bit of like a rubberiness to it. It shares a bit in common to me with Cologne Indelible, but to me the musks and the overall smell of Cologne Indelible is a lot more dark and heavy musks. I think of Cologne Indelible as like the sun setting after you've been at the beach all day and your skin is sweaty and it's like tanned and the sky is golden color. That's the sense I get from Cologne Indelible. Whereas this is the morning, the early morning. It's bright, it's fresh, it's happy, but it has that long musky dry down that kind of extends the orange blossom late into the base, and I really enjoy that. And then finally, another newer one, Roberto Greco's Porte Sapo. This one I think is still available, probably not the most, not as much hype as Rock got, but I really enjoy it. Some people, again, have accused us of being overly derivative of Chanel, and indeed it is aldehydes, but once again, I think it's really modernized. There's a milkiness that I get to the musk that I don't smell in Chanel. Interestingly, the base lists Akigala wood, which is one of my pet peeves, but here it must be dosed very, very, very delicately so that it doesn't stick out. What I don't like about Akigala is, first, it's an eternal longevity, but it has a scratchiness to it, like a nose tingling scratchiness to it to me that I really don't enjoy, and there's nothing of that in here. True to its name, it's not a big projector. It really does kind of meld with your skin, but it lasts forever. It really lasts a really long time. I think it's possible to go nose blind to this. Some people I have seen complain of its poor longevity, but I think it's a perfect execution of the concept in that it stays as part of your skin. But to me, what really sold me on it, made it worth purchasing, is the milkiness, because I find that's a really interesting twist, and it doesn't smell overly vintage to me with the aldehydes. So yeah, kind of an irisy, musky. I think this color does a good job of representing how it feels, skin type scent. So yeah, really beautiful. So these are just a few. It goes without saying, some all-time classics I didn't bother to talk about. Frederick Malle, Eau de Magnolia, and En Passant will be worn in the coming weeks. But I thought I'd talk about some newer things I don't think I've mentioned before, and I'm looking forward to brighter days.